The end of the world can happen in various ways. It can be a natural disaster or more likely something man-made. If people can coexist peacefully and have a good balance with nature, then we can dramatically decrease the chances of the apocalypse. However, since that is wishful thinking and most likely never going to happen, in theory, the end of the world could happen tomorrow. In this list, we'll be showing you 5 recent events that almost caused the end of the world. We would like to give a big shout out to viewers HBeast, Mr.Goodwill McGhee and Jonesy Cairncross for suggesting this video. Number 5. On the 3rd of June 1980, nuclear war almost broke out. Whilst working a late night shift, staff from NORAD noticed that their computer system told them that 220 missiles were heading towards the US. They quickly freaked out, sounded the alarms and made calls to all the right people. The Air Force gathered all their bombers carrying nuclear bombs and set off to the skies, ready to nuke whoever they thought were responsible. Luckily, before any nukes were dropped, someone realized that the 220 missiles were not appearing on the radar screens. It took 3 days to figure out what went wrong, and as it turns out, nuclear war was almost caused by a 46-cent computer chip that malfunctioned. Number 4. A year earlier, on November the 9th, 1979, nuclear war almost broke out again. This time it wasn't a computer chip to blame, but a training program that convinced everyone was real. The training program consisted of what would happen if the Soviets fired 1,000 nuclear missiles at America. A low-level Air Force officer initiated the program, but the simulation was hooked up to the main NORAD control room. This meant that the simulation was seen as real by everyone else. The Pentagon freaked out, believing 1,000 Russian nuclear warheads were coming towards America. Every missile silo in the US prepared to launch at Russia. Fighter planes took off, ready to shoot down the Soviet bombers, and the world as people knew it was about to end. Thankfully, the commander of NORAD thought it was a good idea to double check if the crisis was real before starting World War III. He called up all the radar stations and they all reported that nothing was there. It didn't take them long to realize what happened, and I presume the Air Force officer who ran the simulation probably got his ass kicked. Number 3. On January the 25th, 1995, another nuclear war almost broke out. You're probably spotting a pattern here. This time it was the Russians about to accidentally nuke America. American scientists in northern Norway launched a completely benign research rocket designed to study the northern lights. Russia picked up the rocket on radar and believed it to be an American ballistic missile heading towards them. According to Russian policy, President Boris Yeltsin had only 10 minutes to decide if they should nuke the US. The briefcase containing nuclear launch codes was opened for the first time, and all it would take is a yes by the president for doomsday to come. After much thinking, the time almost ran out. With 1 minute to spare, radar confirmed the missile had fallen into the ocean. Hours went by with the Russians relieved but angry when they discovered it was just a science experiment. America did tell Russia about the experiment weeks earlier. However, someone low down in the Russian chain of command forgot to pass up the message to the people who really needed this information. Number 2. Just to give this list a bit of variety, the world did almost come to an end back in 1883, this time from a billion-ton comet known as the Bonilla Comet. Mexican astronomer Jose Bonilla noticed more than 300 large objects were on a collision course with Earth. These objects ranged in sizes from 164 feet across to a huge 2.5 miles wide. A 2.5 mile comet hitting Earth would almost definitely wipe out humanity. Thankfully, each fragment missed Earth by as little as 350 miles. That may sound like a lot, but 350 miles in terms of space is an extremely close call. Number 1. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a real close call and could have started a huge nuclear war. A brief rundown of the events are as follows. The US tried to overthrow Cuba's communist leader Fidel Castro. They failed and the Soviets got Castro on their side. He agreed to allow the Soviets to place a range of missiles in Cuba to almost act like a private Russian launch pad for nuclear warheads right underneath the US. The US were unaware of this but soon found out and started trying to block the shipments from getting into Cuba. A lot of tension was in the air and the tiniest move can lead to a full-blown war. A lot of negotiations were going on, both sides struggling to find an agreement. The American ships guarding Cuba had the orders to fire upon any Soviet ships trying to get into Cuba. An American plane was even shot down by the Soviets at one point, which in itself could have kicked it all off. However, somehow both sides kept their cool and no disastrous nuclear war started, but it was so close from being a whole different story. Thank you for watching, and if you have a video idea, why not leave a comment below, and if we make it, we'll give you a big shout out. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more awesome daily lists of all things 5. This is All 5, and until next time, feed your mind.